Rudy had a remarkable line, may not have been his, but he used it a lot, which speaks to the moment, which is the mind is the slayer of the soul. For many people, the mind, highly evolved or not evolved, is a directing force in our lives. We learn how to program the mind through all of our parents and ancestors and all of the things that are working around us in the world that are reinforcing what the mind tells us is what is true and what is real. And for most people, the guidance is intellect. And if you're lucky, you went to school and you learned things and you learned about how other people navigated and you brought it into the system and you built it into a bigger version of your mind that helps you understand that Aristotle said this and Plato said that, and therefore this and that. And you have a very good guidance system in the mind. Some people skip those classes, and therefore the mind is not as strong, not as well guided. It is based on, somebody yelling at you, teacher telling you you're stupid, whatever it is, the mind tends to sometimes not be highly functional. So if you're in a dysfunctional mind, or even in a highly functioning mind, that mind has a power to direct your life. It is an outside power. It is a programmed power. It comes in from what you are given as a child and what you continue to extrapolate as you live in this planet, in this world. As I've spoken about for years, and as Rudy spoke about, there is this thing called the soul that the mind can destroy. Well, it's hard to destroy something that you don't even know is there, but if you have begun in this lifetime, if you've been initiated in this lifetime into something that begins to bring you into a place where this energy called soul starts to make itself known, it is way more powerful, way more insightful, far more brilliant, far more sustaining than the mind, which is a temporary construct. For many people, the word soul is like a joke. It's like, show it to me, show me the soul, show me God, show me the creator. It's like, how can that be cognitively real? Where does that come from? And of course, the mind is an articulate force, and it can actually say things to you like, nope, there can't be that. Prove it to me. I need it to be demonstrated in some way. But the experience of the soul is very quiet. It's very substantial. It's very inward. And how one gets to that place is sort of up to your particular journey. Many people in this lifetime fail to discover the idea of soul. Never comes up. And they have only, the mind to kind of tell them what's going on. And in a way, if day-to-day life is continuing to be somewhat predictable and knowable and intelligently registered in your brain, everything's fine. Your mind will somehow get you through. But when the mind begins to witness reality, truth, the world around it, transforming, possibly disintegrating, possibly evaporating on some level, there's a real sense of fear and despair and anxiety because the thing you relied on most to guide you through the day to day reality of your life is suddenly not working. And for many people, the initiation into that comes very quickly. It can be the loss of a friend, a partner, someone you love. It can be your own sense of physical demise. It can be tragedy in the minor scape of your own life or the major scape of the world around you. But when it occurs, and it can occur like that, as Rudy said, life turns on a dime. When life suddenly isn't the reality, that you have been used to, where your mind can't cognate it in the way it used to, where you're feeling lost and despairing and not sure what to do or who to talk to or how to go forward in this strangely transforming world, what do you do? Well, you can, read Aristotle, Plato, go back anywhere you want, the Age of Enlightenment, trying to figure out how to repiece it together. Know that what's going on in life right now is nothing actually new. It's been there in cycles for the whole history of the planet. And human life is a journey through dissolution. But when you have never had that before, when you've never had reality collapse, truth and lies become confused, and you no longer know which way to look and what to believe, when you look at other people saying this is truth and you know it's not, wow, what do you do? How do you go forward? Well, those of you who are attending this talk or this class are aware that there is this otherness, this inner space, this soul energy, if you want to call it that. I call it radiance. You can call it God. You can call it creation. Whatever you want to call it, there is something inside that is wildly stable. It's just there. Not that it means you've ever gone there or you've ever discovered it or that you even trust it on any level. But if something starts to happen in life, and what's happening in our world right now may be a good incentive to start to look for that space that gives you a kind of grounding. And let's call it that because it knows truth, it knows what is. It can comfort, it can put its arms around you. But as I've discussed in recent classes, the first lessons of the baby in the crib is that you cry and you're picked up and you're held. And that comfort comes from the outside, from your mother or your father, or whoever comes and rescues you from your fears and your crying and your discomfort. But then there is a point where the rescuer does not appear, and it's really for a reason, because that's when you have to figure it out. And that's before intellect has really emerged. You have only this sense of emotional feeling. And what happens when you're in the crib and when you're lying there crying and screaming and nobody comes to pick you up? That's where real knowledge of the inner being starts to arise. Because it's then that you go, nothing's working. What do I do? And you just sit there, and strangely, calmness comes, a centeredness comes, a kind of, okay, I trust someone at some point will come in and lift me out of this crib and feed me and take care of me and change my diapers and do all that stuff. And in 99.98% of the time, that will happen. And when it doesn't happen, that's when you begin to check into the realm of fear and anxiety. And, I remember lying in a hospital getting my tonsils taken out. And you've probably heard this story, but, I'm 5 years old and the room was full of 40 kids all having their tonsils out. I don't know why it was like that. And then the next morning, because you stayed overnight in those days, you lay there in your crib until your parents came. And all the parents were coming for all of the kids except mine. My parents did not show up. And I have to say, that was the beginning of my anxiety, my fear of abandonment, my fear of aloneness, my lack of trust. All of these things just started exploding in my brain. And they do in all of our brains when we have incidents like that. And I was there by myself in this hospital room, just lying there trying to figure out, now what? I'm 5 years old. I don't drive. I don't know who to call. I don't know what a phone is really. What do you do? And what I did is I sat there and I didn't know what to do, but I think I began the journey of going, you're going to have to figure this out. You're going to have to trust this. This is the world that you live in. You are not necessarily 100% protected in life. And so I sat in my crib And then all of a sudden, my parents appeared. They were apologetic. They had problems. They were the last ones there. They brought some toys for me. And I went home, but I never forgot that abandonment, ever. And in a way, it was a great gift because it taught me that at some point we are truly that alone. There are times in life where nobody comes. And what have you got? This, this. When I began to discover the reality of this soul force, if you will, this energy that came into the being of my heart, I was I started to feel it when I was about 4 years old, and my grandmother was holding me in the crib, not sorry, in her bed. She was dying of cancer. It was the last time she would ever hold me. And she was going something like mumala mumala, which meant honey or sweetness. And she was holding me with a level of love I had never, ever experienced. And my parents were lovers, but my grandmother sent this thing into me, and it has never gone away, ever. I was a beneficiary of a kind of love that was foundational. Many of us are. But if it doesn't come from your grandmother on her deathbed or your parents or whoever you would like it to come from, you have to go inside because, and this is really important, there is a creative soul energy force, radiant quality of being that is inside everybody. And if you can't find it, you are going to suffer and you are going to go through periods of terrible anxiety. I would like to say and predict, and I do in a way, that when you leave this world, that embrace that my grandmother gave me is going to be there for everybody. I, you know, what do I know? But that's really what I sense will happen. But for the time being, you have got to go through the day to day experience of how do I handle the fact that the world is changing, crumbling, falling apart, whatever you want to call it. And it may not even be the world because the sky is still there. We've had beautiful snowstorm today. Sun comes out in the morning. The birds are here chirping away. So the world isn't falling apart, but the structures within it are really altering. And the big thing for me, and I think for many people, is that what was once truth a month ago is no longer truth. That lying and restating truth in any way you want to seems to be acceptable. That there are huge numbers of people, perhaps half the population of this country, who feel that all of the lack of truth is the new truth. And then there are people who are like me, I suppose, who say, no, that's not the way it works. And there is this incredible division and this incredible struggle. And what do you do with that? How do you get through the day? Well, I'll tell you, the mind will not give you the answer. Your mind will not take care of what's happening here. Your mind is going to be in disarray. It will affect your emotions. Your emotions will affect you. You're going to be depressed, anxiety ridden, fearful, and all of that stuff. You may want to take actions that you don't understand or know what to do with. You can feel very betrayed, if you will. What has to happen, really, for everybody who can pull it off, is you ask for help to surrender, to open to the truth of your own being and listen to it. Follow it. Doesn't matter what the outside world is telling you. Doesn't matter what disarray it's going into. This is not new. The world has been thus from the beginning. We just haven't had to live through it at this level of disruption. But now we do. And will we see it to the end? We're all different ages, and I don't know that I will, but I know that I find the one thing that works. And I got to tell you, it's hard because, you know, watching everything you care about and believe in falling away leaves you with a path you've never been on. What do I do? How do I move forward? It is very disturbing. And the only thing that works for me is a still pointedness, a kind of asking for help some of the time, and a ability on my end to go nope to the mind. I'm telling you, I've talked about this in other classes, but it's really important. The mind will come to you mostly verbally, sometimes just emotionally, but it will start to send these signals of distress. Sometimes they're so overwhelming you don't know how to do battle with it. But much of the time it just starts and you go, nope, nope. Just the power of nope, the power of is enormous. You may have to do it a lot, but it is enormous because when the mind starts to come in and cave in on you, you can go, nope. And you can find the still pointedness, the quietude that will give you my grandmother's love, the love that still pours through this heart, that poured through Rudy's heart, and it goes right into you. And it's not from us. It's deeper. This is just a this is a version of how to transmit it. But it's direct transmission. Trust me. The great thing about soul energy is it's direct. It's right to you. And if the mind doesn't get in the way and destroy it, you will receive it. It will come out from outside and it will come from inside. It's a extraordinarily powerful force that is at the core of who you are and at the core of what the world is. It's there. And we will walk through life with this quiet awareness that this world is temporary, that it's going to be full of suffering and insanity and changes in the rules and things we don't like. That is just part of the equation. But it is impermanent. At some point, it will end. We will go back to probably where we came from, which in my mind is a beautiful space. And we'll see. We'll see. But I can only tell you that while you're in the body and your mind is attacking you and your emotions are attacking you and you're going through all of this upheaval inside, ask for help internally and try to find your way back to stillness and go, nope, to the mind. Nope. It's not perfect. And there will be struggle and you will have difficult times where this is really hard. And I really understand that because I see it in myself. I go through days where I go, I mean, strangely enough, and I guess it's not strange, so many people that I love right now and care about in the world are having really difficult life experiences that have nothing to do with the outer sort of political realm of the world. People are in jeopardy. People are suffering in really great ways and a magnitude that I have not witnessed before. It may have to do with age. It may have to do with I can't tell you how the world plans itself out, but I can only tell you that the only thing that seems to help here is reaching out, holding hands, being together, offering yourself and your support to whoever needs it, trying to deliver as much as you can. I got to say, when you hit my age and Blanche's age, you know, trying to do very much is not easy. But I will tell you, sending love, care, holding hands, community, all of that, which I've talked about before, is wonderful. It's wonderful. Find people you care about. And if they're not reaching out to you, and I've said this before, you reach out. Reach out. And you can even write emails that say reaching out and say, how are you? I dreamt about you last night, which is happening for me. I'm dreaming about people and I'm calling them and saying, I just dreamt about you. And people are doing that to me, which is really kind of interesting because, I mean, there's a dialogue happening at a whole other level in Dreamscape. And I'm going, okay. And if somebody comes up inside me in my brain that says, you have to call them, I don't wait 10 minutes. I just do it. And I go, I don't know why, but hi, how are you? Are you okay? And in many cases, I've told you this before, those moments are pregnant with need and gratitude on the other end. So we can be the engineers of that kind of transformative energy that takes the strangeness of the world and brings it into something that is very close to home, which is caring and love and kindness and goodness, which we can spread. And when we need it, if we're lucky, it will come to us from outside. But if we're not lucky, it's already there. Trust me, it is already there. Now, it may be leaving you alone in the same way that your parents leave you alone in the crib, because you've got to figure it out. We all have to figure it out. How do we go forward? How do we manifest the clarity and the truth of our lives in a world that is shattering and changing in such dramatic ways. There's no rule book here. There's nothing. There's nothing waiting for us right now that's telling us how to do that. Nothing, except perhaps this talk is offering some guidance, which is find the soul, don't destroy it with your mind, and let it inform your journey. It will inform your journey. And it may not be 24/7. You may have to really work it. And, I can only tell you that there's something beyond us that's programming us right now or directing us. And I think it has a purpose, and I think it's evaporation and then it's reestablishment and this continual sort of vibrational coming and going is important to us because constancy is not part of the world. I have never seen it. We think because we lived in a kind of really quiet time in the world that we have found the truth and the constancy of life. But now look, not the truth. It has changed completely. Everything is in upheaval in a way, except if we can stay still inside, we connect to what is constant, which is the heart of your own being is constant. And it can go out there and serve you and the world and everyone around you. You just have to do it. You have to show up for your own life, for your own inner being. And I'm getting notices, letters from people. Oh my, I had a really funny one the other day. A dear friend of mine has just gone to Bodhanath, where Bodh Gaya, excuse me, Bodh Gaya, where Buddha had his enlightenment under the Bodh tree. I warned him it might be a little bit of a spectacle. Uh, and he wrote me back and said, I've just visited Bodh Gaya. I've just become a communist and an atheist. He could not handle the craziness of the environmental space. It was just, it was not crazy. And I've been there with Blanche and I know, it's a parade of events and people trying to post their inside life in some outer form. It's presentation. The real thing is quietude. Buddha sat still under that Bodh tree. He didn't have crowds of people with horns and flags and dressed in all these different kinds of costumes coming to bow down. He just sat quietly. We need to sit quietly. We need to find that space in ourselves that absolutely knows that we're okay in this crazy moment. We are okay. And we have to hold hands with our friends who are becoming atheists and communists and say, give it a shot, give it time. We will be a community of people. And at some point, if that doesn't work and the world completely falls apart and shatters, the only thing I can tell you from my own experience, you don't have to trust it or believe it, is that there is something inside that does not seem to be capable of being destroyed. It seems to be absolute, foundationally present, and it is the very core of your manifested existence. You will go back to that space like a breath goes back inside the lungs. You return to stillness, you return to the core of what supports you and gets you through life. And we can all do that by ourselves, and we can all do that together. So trust this journey, guys. I know it's a complicated moment, and I don't think it's going to be less. And I feel funny if this is the weekly talk. I'd rather it not be, but it may be. And, as I say every week, if you got the message and you don't need to hear it anymore, off you go. But if you want to hear it again, you can go online. It's on YouTube, or you can come back to this class, and we'll keep at it. But I do think it has to be reinforced. We need to know that we're okay. We're not crazy. The world can be crazy, but we don't have to be. We can still be loving, generous people to the ones around us and to ourselves. Do not let your mind destroy your soul. It's not worth it. The end. Maybe. George.
Why does the mind always seem to be in conflict with your spiritual growth?
George is asking, why does the mind always seem to be in conflict with your spiritual growth? I'm not sure it is always, but the mind is programmed for physical material survival. and the material physical is not permanent. It's going to fade away and we're all going to die. So the mind doesn't know what to do with that, and it's trying to project something that will be infinitely comfortable, and there's no such thing.
Is stillness the antidote?
Stillness is an antidote to that, and it's a real help. And it's a desire to go toward that that's really important. I was going to mention this old thing, I may have talked about it before. When Rudy's ashram started to expand, there was a big group from Texas that was going to come to New York to sit with him in the class. And they drove 36 hours to come into the classroom. And everyone, this whole group of people, like 15 or 20 people, all were sitting in the class and fell asleep. And they were not there for the class. And they were so guilty and so sad about their missing the class. And one of them said to Rudy, well, we just drove 36 miles, 36 hours to come to this class and we missed it. What does that mean? And Rudy said, the drive here was your class. And you have to understand that the effort that you make in this life is the class. It's not just getting the result. It's the reaching for it, the muscle that makes the effort to try to get whatever it is there is to be gotten. And what there is to be gotten, they slept through that part, but they didn't sleep through the ride. They made the effort, and it allows at some point in time that information to the universe that says, this person really wants this. This is my interpretation. Let's give it. If you really, really want and need and care for this soul energy to break through, it pays attention. It really pays attention, and it will break through. It will come through. That's my promise. Shoot me if I'm wrong, but in my own experience, this energy has come back to me over and over and over and over. And I now know when it goes away, it's not a rejection of me, it's making me stronger. I have to reach harder. I have to work deeper in myself. And that's what I do, just like my little baby self in the crib used to do. I work harder and it comes back with more contentment than I've ever known before. Anybody else with a question?
Hey, Bruce,
Yes.
Mark. Hey, Bruce, Mark.
Okay. I don't see you. Keep talking.
I'm probably the other page, but
Uh-huh.
you talk a lot about the mind and the soul and how the mind is always in the way, right? And how the soul is there to kind of calm the mind down. When you had your awakening, did the mind then become an asset to you?
Great question. Yeah, it does actually. I mean, it's been a wonderful asset until about 4 weeks ago. My mind has been just like it tells me things like, put the toothpaste here and not there. Flush the toilet. I mean, it says these simple little things, and you think, oh yeah, that's not, but what's that? It makes my life simple and easy. It tells me when Blanche asks me the same question 7 times, not to answer like you've told me that 7 times. It's answer like you've heard it for the first time. It's be good and kind to the people around you. It tells me that, there are people in my family who are on the other side of the equation. And I have found myself getting annoyed that they voted this new world into play. And yet, when I talk to any of them, what I have found is the love is the more powerful force. The mind says, accept the love, accept the love. Don't go into the other part. So the mind can be, and actually is in many ways, a friend in the journey. And the awakened mind, we call it higher mind. Okay, there's that definition in a lot of spiritual practice, reaching for higher mind. Higher mind is a very quiet mind, and it knows stuff. And it just goes, this, that, do this, do that. That's all it does. But it's so powerful, it changes the equation over and over again. So when you touch higher mind, you're going to be very well guided. But when the world of reality, as you've known it, starts to disappear from you, higher mind gets like, oi, why, and even it has it's not totally functional for me. And there are times of the day where I'm like, what are you doing? And it doesn't bring me an answer. So I have to, at that point, go into my breath zone and find no mind, quiet mind, or soul. And that soul just goes, here you go. That's all it does. It's really simple. It's much more delicate than the quiet mind or the still mind. It just provides. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't talk about all this if it wasn't absolutely real for me. But it is still work. And that's the thing. I mean, if those of you think I'm sitting around in a state of pure ecstasy, that is not the case. This has been a challenging moment because my friends and the world and everything around me is shifting. You know, my son, I've said this 1,000 times now, but he works at the Justice Department. His stories are beyond. You know, and there's a student in this class whose daughter is in the USAID and was just fired the other day. It's not like it's out there in the abstract. This is happening right here in now in our lives. And what do you do? Well, I have every right in the world to be completely anxiety ridden and anxious and miserable. And maybe you're picking some of that up in my voice. But the truth is, I have to stop. I have to get quiet and I have to go, okay. I'm going to throw a stupid thing out at you because this is probably, it's not a teaching, but I've started doing this crazy thing with my mouth. I go, the big version is, but the small version is like this. I don't know what that is, but it calms me down. Just moving my mouth around really slowly opens my throat chakra, opens my upper chest, and it is so still and it is so easy and it just calms me down over and over. I didn't know if that's something to share with people because it may just be my insanity, you know, that okay, that works. But it does, if it helps you at all, if I can give you anything that helps you at all, I would love that. All I know is the one thing I can give you right now is that we'll all get together week after week and talk and share and be together and love. Daniel, you had a question? Bob, sorry.
When do you invoke nope? And when do you invoke please help me?
Uh, I do nope, and the noise doesn't stop. I keep going nope, 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 and I go, help me, because the nope isn't enough. Sometimes it's just not strong enough to handle the onslaught. I mean, I try not to watch the news, but the headlines come through in various ways, and I'm going, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I mean, I saw something about, uh, I won't go into it. You know, the things I just go, uh, I don't understand this. And what happens is for me, I go, nope, I'm not going to go there. And sometimes that's fine. I just go, nope, gone. You know, I have this thing because Blanche does like to watch the news, and so I can sometimes start with her. But when I get to the point where I go, nope, I get up and walk out. You know, gone. And I go, okay, I had that power to stop my involvement with this. But then there are times where enough of it gets through, I go, and then I have to ask for help. You know, I just have to ask for help. And the incredible thing about the spiritual journey that Rudy has sort of given us and taught us is asking for help can work. You may have to ask for help 20 times, 100 times, you know, it's like being in the crib crying and nobody comes, but then you have to figure it out, not as an intellectual, mindful thing, but as something of like, what can you do? What can you do? And there's a real lesson in that. What can you do? And you ride this thing out. I mean, guys, we're on a big trip right now. We're on a big journey, truly. I mean, nothing that any of us have ever seen before. So let's stay together, hold hands, be on this journey, and see how it unfolds. I think if we talk and share and are part of the sort of generalized comfort zone of human experience, we will ride this out with grace. That's what I'm hoping for. Any more questions?
Hey, Bruce, Mark again. I just real quick on the follow-up about asking for help. Is that going into the soul to get that help? How is that actually?
It's going to go anywhere it can go. But yes, it is to go to the soul with great quietude. Please help me to surrender was Rudy's gift, or to accept or to allow. But surrender was the great idea, to accept the totality of what's happening. Of course, the acceptance that I used to have was like, you know, I have to accept, you know, whatever, my kid has a cold or I'm worried about my next paycheck or whatever, you know, those kind of things. But suddenly worrying about the world and asking for help to surrender is a bigger act. in a way, but it's the same act. It's trying to find this energy and to address the universe, which is to me very deep inside and very high up there. And I I talk to the universe all the time. I talk to source, whatever it is. I talk to the radiant forces. Sometimes they're there and shower back this kind of like, it's okay. Sometimes they don't do a thing, nothing, just nothing, not there. And again, I relate that to the crib. So lessons learned, you figure it out. But I do think it's the soul, it's the mind asking the soul to come feed it. And if the mind knows how sincere you are, if it knows that you drove 36 hours to try to get to it, it goes, okay. But it's a dialogue. It wants your cooperation. It's not just there to give it to you so you just throw it to the wind. It's too important. You can't be like that. Is that it, everybody? Okay, look, I love you all so much.
It's
I'm sorry, to Terrell? Okay, right, go for it.
One thing that's come up for me with all the bullshit that's going on in the world is my gratitude for this work has just increased tremendously. And there's a very powerful tool that I always remind people of, and that's the negative psychic tension release exercise.
Great. It's a great one. Thank you.
And I find myself doing that more and more and more. And another thing is the people that are doing this are not half of the United States. They're a very small number of people. I have a very conservative Republican cousin who's older than me. And on January 6th, I called him up to tell him about another cousin who had died. And he was horrified by what was going on January 6th. And I'm sure that he's horrified by what's going on now. And
well, I can't speak. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We can reach out with open hearts, and these people are our allies, and there's things to be done. I mean,
yes.
One thing that you can do is write letters, because it's easy to ignore an inbox or a voicemail that's full of people. It's really hard for senators, congressmen, governors, whatever, to ignore huge bags of physical mail that come into their offices. And just staying on.
I'm going to interrupt you because I mean, yes, there's a to-do list that can go on forever, but I don't know that we need to get into the process of that. I will just very quickly tell people Rudy's negative psychic tension release exercise for people who don't know it, but it's the same practice we have of the breath into the heart and asking for help to surrender, or the breath into the navel chakra. But it's, you put your hands down by the side of your body, take a breath into your heart, hold it for about 10 seconds, and you ask inside for help to surrender. And then you add negative, and you have to say negative, psychic tension and congestion. Negative psychic tension and congestion. That's what the words I remember. And then you let it drain out of your hands. And if it doesn't drain out of your hands, you shake your hands out like this. And you can do it over and over as much as you need to, just as a thing you can do to deal with the darkness that is coming in. Then if you want to write letters or go on marches, I'm not even sure I should propose that people go on marches, because I think they're going to be met with violence. But I do know you have to follow the deepest directive of your soul and go forward. I'm going to stop this only because I think this could go on, and God knows we'll be talking in the weeks ahead. So the important thing,
The negative psychic, what?
Tension.
You ask for help to surrender negative psychic tension and
Thank
congestion. You're welcome.
Bruce, can I just say one thing, just really quickly? After class, I still feel it. I feel it through my body, and I want it to continue. And I keep trying, to meditate every day, all the time, but it's never as strong as after class.
Well, I mean, there's truth to that. Whenever I would go to Rudy's class, I would walk around thinking, well, I'm done. I got it. It's so perfect and it's so complete and it's so beautiful. And then, 2 hours later, where did it go? And what do I do? And how do I get it back? And Rudy called it a muscle. and it's a muscle you have to keep working and working, and you have to keep at it. But the problem is, and this is subtle, but it's a problem. The person who wants to hold on to that sense of comfort and ease and having arrived at something that's really wonderful, that's a problem character. That's mind ego thinking, well, I got it. But the I that got it is a temporary construct that is not able ever to ultimately hold on to it because it's not going to last forever. It may not even last for 10 minutes. What you need to do more than ever is let go of the need for me, mine, having me have it all, and go into soul, if you will, which is a collective in a way. It's not just a personal soul. The soul is universal. The soul is everywhere, and it will connect you to everyone around you. So whether or not you have it for your comfort zone is not the issue. The thing is empathy for, love for the world that you are in, the humanity that you are part of, the existence that you manifest. That's what we have to do. And when you want it for just for you, it will ultimately betray you because you're not going to survive. None of us will survive, any one of us. So unless you can accept that, and here again, Christ teaching, cross, suffering, etc., that's kind of the way out. And the idea of forgiving people from a place of great soul energy is the road forward. And if you can practice that now, so let's say your energy went away and you don't have the comfort zone that you feel, but you suddenly feel love for another person, call them. If you feel empathy for someone who's struggling more than you are, call them.
So pass it on is the answer.
Pass on the love and the joy and the beauty and comfort that you can, and the kindness to every other person on the planet wherever you can do it. You can sit and really send love out into the universe. You can literally do that. It may not be filling you particularly, but you can be a channel for that. It'll come through you and it may dissipate, but boy, let it go, give it out there. It's not a bad thing to do, to love existence and to honor the truth of this unbelievable thing we're all in. I mean, just because it's not comfortable right now doesn't mean it's not an amazing space to be. It's an amazing world, and use it well.